I'm Richard and welcome to ZP Productions. I hope you enjoyed the earlier video because in my future product reviews, I'll probably do something like that to let you see the packaging and the product in its best light. So today's video is about the Arca Swiss Cube, a review on it. This is something I own for 1.5 years. This is my own personal Arca Swiss Cube, not a rented product. It is really expensive. I will talk about that at the end. So I just want to quickly share with you 4 things that I think is great about gearheads and the Arca Swiss Cube in particular, and 4 things I still think like a traditional ball head, this Series ball head, is a better choice. So let's straight away dive into the first part, the 4 things I like about the gear heads, especially the Arca Swiss gear head. First thing is the overall real-world load bearing, especially off-axis. Because most cameras like the GFX 100 has a lens in front. You know, you have to have a lens in front, and the lens can be quite heavy and front heavy. Especially if you look at something like the 70-200s and 250 GF lens. So this off-axis weight will result in some droop, slack or whatnot on a ball head unless you tighten a lot. Normal friction is just unreliable. It will start drooping and shifting your frame. So a gear head doesn't have this problem regardless of how heavy is it off-axis. You will see on the Arca Swiss Cube, I loaded a 250mm on the camera itself, not on the tripod collar, and you notice that it will never droop, never slack, and never have such a problem. This is just the advantage of gear heads, and any gear head will have that same effect because gear heads are mechanically linked by teeths, while for a ball head it's held by friction, and if the friction is not enough, it will droop and slack. And if your ball head is not big enough, that friction amount is not enough to maintain that weight limit. Of course, if you use a very big ball head, you probably can get over it, but that is if you're using a very huge one. So the next thing I will talk about is the accuracy itself. And accuracy is something that I don't think need to have much explanation. It's because as you turn this wheel, it shifts a few degrees. While on the ball head, pretty much you need to eyeball it literally to get the frame you want perfectly, which is really hard unless your hand motion is so precise on that. So it's just the advantage of a gear head, and this is very important for panorama and anyone who do landscape who want to maximize the 100% pixel, or if you want to do macro photography where the item is so small and shifting 1 degree is a huge deal. So this is something that is applicable to other gearheads and also applicable to the Arca Swiss Cube. Now the next one is about drooping and slop, especially for a gearhead and versus a ball head. The ball head will actually droop and slop. If you apply friction to it and put it off-axis, the off-axis momentum will actually shift it slightly over time. If you lock it, it will result in a sudden shift of frame, which is even more irritating sometimes. So this is a disadvantage of the ball head, and you can look at this article here that talks about the effect of locking and shifting the frame itself. This is just how the ball head works. Now, for a gear head, obviously, like what I say at the stop in the first point, it is locked by mechanical teeth, so you don't have such problem. However, the Arca Swiss Cube is superior compared to the other gearheads out there like the Manfrottos, because the Manfrotto work off axes, mechanical axes on 3 different axes, and when you load something heavy enough, there is some flex and bend, there's some play in those gearheads, especially over time. If you mount heavy equipment like this, you will notice that the frame shifts slightly, but you can easily turn the frame back with the gear motion. Not as severe as a ball head, but definitely it flexes on normal gear heads. But on the Arca Swiss Cube, it is perfectly rigid. There is usually no play, no slack, and no matter which degree you put in, like say in this video here, I'm putting a 250mm on the GF, I can shift it around, really you get a perfect smooth motion with no very problematic slack and drooping, even if you just leave it there for days. So this is the advantage of the Arca Swiss Cube, and the next one is a pure advantage in the Arca Swiss Cube because of its design, and that's because of how it works. Now, I first want to show you how this Arca Swiss Cube works. It's like taking a point and drawing a circle, and this point is above into the camera itself. So you can imagine the camera is here, and the point of rotation is somewhere inside here, closer to your lens mount or the lens center. Well, if you look at a ball head, the point of rotation is the ball and mechanism itself, and therefore if you put the camera here, the motion is huge. Now this is applicable to most other gearheads also, because most other gearheads, their rotation is at the point of the mechanical gears. So why is that a big deal? Take a look at this video side-by-side comparison. I'm doing a very exaggerated motion, but you can imagine, you know, I'm just doing something like leveling the camera. And you can see that to level a ball head where the pivot itself is on the ball, it's a huge motion that results in a huge change of frame. While on the Arca Swiss, notice how little change of frame and how little motion the center of the lens is in comparison. This is the advantage of the design for the Arca Swiss Cube, and the main reason why you buy it, because if you are doing macro, you are doing a portrait, close-up, beauty shots, this small little motion will drive you nuts. Because if you just want to turn it slightly to one axis on normal gear heads or even the normal ball heads, that will result in a huge change of frame, which is really hard to readjust back. While on the Cube, you already have less of such problem. So this is pretty much it for the things that I like about the Arca Swiss Cube. Two of them are really in particular the Cube, the rigidity and the frame motion. So the next thing is about 4 things that I don't quite like about the Cube, and I think a standard ball head is a lot better. And these are quite natural. So firstly, we'll talk about is the range of motion. Okay, so now my Arca Swiss Cube is on its maximum range of motion. Let me lift it up, maximum range of motion. Well, if you look at the ball head here, and literally if you use a ball head before, you know that you can twist in any way and drop down a notch. Right? If you are using something like the Acra Tech, we have multiple notches, even easier. The range of motion is huge for a ball head. While a Cube is limited to 30 degrees left and right, front and back, that's about it. Of course, there is a way to rotate the Cube to one side, as example here. Now, but this is extremely dangerous because now not only do you have a camera that is offset with a huge distance, you also have a very heavy Cube offset. And if your tripod is not well built or the tripod doesn't have a good counterweight, it will drop and destroy all your equipment in the process. So this is one thing, the range of motion. The next thing is speed, and that is the opposite of accuracy and finesse. So the gear head has a lot of accuracy, a lot of finesse, a lot of fine motion, while a ball head is just gross motion in many ways, depending on how fine your hand movement is. And that is the nature of the design. So ball head, speed. And the next thing we'll talk about is durability of the mechanism. Because a ball head is just all metal construct with a ball itself that can be made of pure metal if you want it. And then there is a metal cage and then paddings that hold the ball. The paddings also keep dirt and dust out. So unlike a gear head, especially Arca Swiss gear head, Arca Swiss Cube in particular is very, I would say, it's not prone but susceptible to damage because the gear you can see is exposed out here. So if anything hard, any fine particles such as sand get in, it can cause damage to the gear and make it a very rough experience. And if let's say the particle is huge enough and you make enough force, you will actually strip the gears themselves. So this is just a disadvantage, especially for Arca Swiss Cube, because the gear is exposed, unlike Manfrotto, which the gear is inside. And the next thing is also when you do drop the equipment, let's say you really drop the equipment, on a ball head, it's just all metal construct in most ways. And unless you drop it on a knob and damage the knob itself, normally the ball head will not spoil. At most, you get a ding. Now, on the gear head, on the other hand, if you drop it like this or like this, and then it will cause the whole panel, the whole top to shift in a very huge impact way. This will cause the gears to strip. Now the gears are very, very, very strong. This Arca Swiss is rated for 20 over kg, but the impact can easily go more than that in that sudden point, and this will cause damage and stripping of the gear, and you need to bring it to Arca Swiss to fix, which costs quite a bit of money. I have not dropped my gear head before, so it's still in pristine condition. So it goes on to the last part about ball heads, and that is convenience. If you take a look at the top 3, speed, range of motion, and of course, you talk about the durability of the mechanism itself, and coupled with that, most ball heads are actually smaller than the Arca Swiss Cube. Even the bigger ball heads are also smaller and lighter than Arca Swiss Cube. It brings out into this final concluding point, which is a ball head is always more convenient. And for most people, if you are not critical on the framing, you can just crop in post. The ball head is a better choice. It's just more convenient, and you can easily throw a ball head with a tripod into a tripod bag like I'm doing it now, and get it over and done with. While on a Cube, you can't do that. You have to put proper padding and put it in a box to travel around, especially it's so big and bulky. Now, the Arca Swiss Cube is the smallest gear head that is robust. The other gear heads by Manfrotto, they are huge. Like, I think the dimension is like 2 times bigger. So just to note, the Arca Swiss Cube is already one of the smallest gear head you can get in the market. So it brings off to the final thoughts of the Arca Swiss Cube and who is it for. I mean, if you do macro, you do telephoto portraits, or you want to maximize your landscape shots, the Arca Swiss Cube do a very, very good job, and a way better job than the other makers out there for the gearheads. Because of the frame motion, because of its rigidity, it is a lot better, and if you use heavy equipment, it is fantastic. However, it is expensive. This is 2K Sing dollars or 1.5K US. So if you don't want to spend that kind of money, most other gears get you there 90% of the way except for the framing, and pretty much will do very similar thing as the Arca Swiss Cube. Now, the probably 80+% of the other photographers probably don't need those things that I'm talking about. They shoot with a standard camera, lightweight, not really heavy, and they don't need precise framing. Then the ball head is the better choice. Just use a ball head, it gets you anything you want except that very fine motion, and get it quick and fast and very durable. So this is it. You know, if you ask me, 90% of people will never need a cube, and the other 10%, only 1% will probably say the cost is worthy of what they do. So the cube is obviously a very niche product, and I think it's going to be niche forever. This is not a very new product. It's been out in the market, I think, for 10 years, but you don't see it often, and you really find very little reviews on it. In fact, most reviews don't talk about what's so great about a cube. They just talk about what's so great about a gearhead, and that's about it. So the Arca Swiss Cube, in conclusion, is a fantastic product, except that it's quite expensive and is a very niche product. If you don't do no niche thing, get other gearheads or get a normal ball head is my recommendation. Now there's one last thing I want to cover before I end this video, and that is the packaging of Arca Swiss. I would like to say how terrible it is. As you can see in the opening intro, this is just a cardboard box with foam and then some paper and plastic. And that's about it. Arca Swiss did not give anything. In fact, if you look at the manual here, it's a black and white printer on the paper. Terrible packaging for a $2,000 product. I have nothing else to say, but just to say, the gearhead is a very, very well-built product on the other hand, unlike the packaging. Maybe they're trying to save money here and give you maximum output in the head itself, but that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this video and find it fruitful to watch. The Arca Swiss Cube is a rare product. I don't think you can get much reviews on it. And really, I hope you learned something about gearheads and why this is a fantastic item, as long as you can stomach the price. So do like and subscribe if you want to see more of such reviews. If not, I will see you next time in my next review, which probably be one of my GF lenses that I have now, the 45mm or the 50mm. Till then, see you next time. Bye bye.